For reasons that utterly escape everyone involved, you're listening to a Bipolar, a Schizophrenic, and a podcast. Here are your hosts, Gabe Howard and Michelle Hammer.
Welcome to a Bipolar, a Schizophrenic, and a podcast. My name is Gabe Howard, and I am bipolar.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I am schizophrenic.
And today we are going to talk about suicide. Specifically, how are we still alive after having been suicidal for so long? And this is kind of a tricky one for us to cover because Michelle and I, we kind of like to be bombastic. We kind of like to be funny. We kind of like to be out there and, well, we like to yell at each other. And suicide is it's a scary topic. It's something that sort of lends itself not to humor, but to, I don't know. It's scary.
It is a scary topic. It's something that doesn't really get spoken about. It's kind of something that is very hush-hush. And if you've ever really attempted suicide, you don't talk about it because then people just really judge you very harshly. And they would say, why would you do that? Don't you care about people around you? How is that going to affect people around you? What you did was something selfish.
There's 80 billion reasons that this show should avoid suicide, given how we talk about living with mental illness, our mental illness, and mental illness advocacy. But there's one very big reason that we should cover it, and that's that we're not afraid. And we talk about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's going to be a challenge for us. The first thing that we want to say immediately right out of the gate is trigger warning, suicide. We are going to be talking about suicide. And I'm not going to tell you that an inappropriate joke may or may not come up because, hey, we're Gabe and Michelle.
That's right.
This is what we do. If you are in danger right now, if you are feeling suicidal, please ask for help. Call 911 if you're in America. Call the suicide hotline. Tell a trusted friend. Go to the emergency room. Most importantly, Michelle and I are still alive because we got help, because we talked about it openly.
And I'm really bad at suicide.
Oh, and the first inappropriate joke is right out of the gate. Okay, Michelle, we did some research. We made a list of topics and stuff that we want to discuss. And the first question that I get asked a lot is, if you were suicidal, why didn't you just do it? So you must not have been suicidal because you didn't die. So you're a liar. I have a million things I want to say to that. One of them is, fuck you. That's not how mental illness works.
Yeah. That's a big fuck you. Don't belittle somebody's suicide attempt, because if they want to do it again, they're like, if you belittle somebody's suicide attempt, they're going to think, oh, I didn't really try to kill myself, so maybe next time I'll try even harder and succeed.
Well, and I love this whole idea of this if you try suicide or if you say you're suicidal, it's just a dramatic cry for help. You want to hear some other dramatic cries for help? Help, I'm drowning. Help, my house is on fire. Help, I'm falling out of a helicopter. But the difference is when people yell those things, people come to help. People come to help them.
But when someone says they're suicidal, oh, you're just being dramatic. What's wrong? Did you have a bad conversation today? You're not really suicidal. It's really just stop being dramatic. You don't actually feel that way. You don't know what's going on in my head. You don't know my thoughts. You don't know what I'm dealing with. Don't tell me it's all in my head. No.
It's just this really bizarre thing that we have where society acknowledges that it's a cry for help, but then also says that the best thing to do is not help. I cannot stress enough that if somebody says that they are suicidal, if somebody says that they want to die, that is not drama. It's none of those things. That person needs help. And you're saying, well, what if the person is lying and faking? Then that person is a jackass.
Yeah.
But to literally ignore every single person that asks for help because they're fighting with their own brain, because they're mentally ill, because they're having suicidal thoughts, because they're so depressed they can't take it anymore, because some dickhead out there is being dramatic, that's literally nonsense.
Yeah.
It's literally nonsense.
After one suicide attempt, my friend told me, you weren't really trying to kill yourself that time. You know what happened a month or two later? I then tried to kill myself again. Did that time count?
Michelle, how many times did you attempt suicide?
Well, did I attempt, but I attempted really wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. But I would say maybe 7 times.
That's a lot. And you're very lucky that you're still alive. I do appreciate your joke. You must be really bad at suicide. And for one, am glad. This statistically holds up. For whatever reason, women do tend to suck at suicide. There's a lot of research into this. One of these is the methods. We're not going to give methods because that's just...
Well,
we're trying to be mature.
Something I did learn about women, difference between women and men, is that women like to be found looking like themselves.
Yeah, men don't care.
Yeah, men are like, find me all disgusting. I don't care.
Aren't you glad that vanity saved your life?
Yeah, I guess so. Vanity saved my life.
Yeah. Our society really messes with us. But when you're feeling suicidal at all, this is an example of your brain not working properly. We as humans, our bodies, our minds, our consciousness is set up to defend ourselves. If you walk up to a stranger and you throw a tennis ball at their face and they see it, they'll duck. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to consider it. They don't have to wonder what. All they know is that an object is coming at them and they immediately take evasive action. It's biological. It's built into our brains. And yet, when we're feeling suicidal or when we try suicide, we're overriding that. And that's the illness process. Our bodies have decided to steer into danger rather than away from it. And that's an unnatural state of being. So that is the first way that you know that something is wrong. Our bodies want to protect themselves. We just do.
Every time I tried to kill myself, I thought I had to kill myself. I thought it was something that was better for the future. I thought everyone would be better without me, and everyone would be happier if I was gone. I would be less of a burden on everybody's life. But thinking back, now that I can really do retrospective kind of thoughts, it would have ruined people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
It would have really ruined people's lives. So the thoughts I have of, I'm a burden, I should be gone, I would have put horrible burdens on all of my friends and my family, and they might still be thinking about me every day about what I did and how maybe they could have helped me and they couldn't. And they might not be okay now because of what I did.
There's a quote out there, and I really like it, and I don't know who to credit it to. It is not ours, but it says that suicide does not end the pain. It just transfers it to somebody else. And I believe that is so true.
Yes.
When I was suicidal, I convinced myself that my granny didn't love me. And as everybody knows, I am Granny's favorite.
Yes.
I convinced myself that my friends, my family, just even strangers would be happy if I were dead. And this is nonsense because, look, strangers don't give a shit if I'm alive or dead. So to have convinced myself that strangers would be happy that I was dead, literally, they don't care. That's why they're strangers. I'm not saying this to be mean to strangers. They wouldn't be happy or sad. They'd be indifferent. That's just how life works. We're not emotionally invested with every single person that we see. You live in New York City. If you were emotionally invested in every single person that you laid eyes on, you wouldn't have time to podcast.
I wouldn't. I'm just kind of bringing up one thing. This is about my mother that she of course she's not going to like that I'm saying this, but when I was in college, my grandparents were alive, and my mom would call me and she would say, Michelle, my mother's sick, my father's crazy. Can you just be okay so I don't have to worry about you? What does that make me feel like? A huge burden.
Yeah, it does. And let's take this from your mother's perspective, because, we want to be fair. Our parents, mine too. I don't know how my mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and brother and sister and friends and family escape my anger these days, because they did all of those things too. They said that I was being dramatic. They didn't get me the help that I needed. As long-term listeners of the show know, a complete stranger took me to the hospital. My friends and family were not absent. My parents are good parents, but they didn't know. They didn't do anything. Your mother was just like, hey, get a grip and don't cause me problems because I have other things to worry about. If your mom would have understood that you were sick, because she never would have told you, hey, don't be sick from cancer. She never would have told you, like, if you got in like a traumatic accident and you were like, you know, like learning to walk again. She never would have been said, hey, can you just like walk today so this doesn't cause a problem? Your mom's not an idiot. She was just ignorant about what was going on. And that's an extra burden to people like us, because now their ignorance becomes our problem. And we're already sick.
Yeah. How was I supposed to feel in that situation?
You were supposed to feel shitty.
What was her logic there? Like, of her telling me, can you just be better so I don't have to worry about you?
Her logic is that you had control, because she hadn't yet understood that you didn't have control. As so many people, I did the same thing as your mother to myself. I thought that I was just an asshole. And I can't say it any other way. My parents would sit me down and say, you can't behave this way. You can't skip school. You can't stay up all night. You can't talk to people like that. You can't behave this way. And then when I became an adult and started, well, we all know what I did as an adult. These were not the values that my parents taught me. I thought that I had control. I didn't realize I was sick. I thought that I was just making really shitty decisions. And I kept doing it over and over and over again.
Let's pause and hear from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.com. Secure, convenient, and affordable online counseling. All counselors are licensed, accredited professionals. Anything you share is confidential. Schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus chat and text with your therapist whenever you feel it's needed. A month of online therapy often costs less than a single traditional face-to-face session. Go to BetterHelp.com/Psych Central and experience 7 days of free therapy to see if online counseling is right for you. BetterHelp.com/Psych Central.
And we're back.
Do you think that the world would have just been better off if you were gone?
No. I thought it at the time. I really did think it at the time. I thought that everybody would be relieved. I thought that they would be like, oh, we don't have to worry about Gabe anymore. We don't have to be concerned that Gabe is going to get fired or cause a problem or divorce his wife or cheat on his wife or yell at his wife or yell at us. Or we've all heard the
wrath of Gabe.
Yeah, these things didn't come out of nowhere. I kind of wish that I could escape that label, because the wrath of Gabe hasn't existed since, treatment. But I was a person with untreated bipolar disorder, and, bipolar rage is a thing. As much as I hate the reminder that I used to be so out of control that I would just start screaming at people uncontrollably and nonstop, like I was some sort of like Supreme Court justice candidate, just bothers me.
Did you always believe that you were in the right when you were screaming? You were
yeah.
always right. Yeah.
Who starts screaming because they think they're wrong? I had no ability to consider another point of view. None whatsoever. And the more they wanted me to consider their point of view, the angrier I became. And the angrier I became, the more I would yell. And the more that I would yell, it just sort of built on itself. So you can see where when you've got that kind of emotion just railing at somebody, they're going to look at you like you're just insane. They're going to look at you like you're an asshole. And those would be the faces that I would think about when I would be contemplating whether or not I wanted to live or die.
So you 100% are glad you're alive right now.
I have achieved more than I ever thought possible. And I don't mean for like a dude with bipolar disorder. I mean like just for a dude. I never thought I could get here. I had so many problems. And I still have a lot of problems.
I have a question. So how old were you when you first thought of suicide attempts and tried to almost make a suicide attempt?
0. I was 0 years old. I thought about suicide every single day as far back as I can remember. 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. I thought that everybody was thinking about suicide. I really did. And nobody ever, nobody dissuaded me of this.
Did you tell people?
No. Why would I?
Because you thought it was normal.
Yeah, I thought it was normal.
Yeah.
I did. And listen, I have never seen my mother go to the bathroom. I want to put that right out there for the general public. I have never seen my mother go to the bathroom, but I do assume that she does.
Yeah.
It's just an assumption. So if my mother is the one person on the planet that never has to use the restroom, she should tell me, because there's no way that I would know this. I thought about suicide every day, but nobody walked up to me and said, hey, thinking about suicide is abnormal. And I didn't tell them because I thought they were all thinking about it too. This is just how it was. I just assumed that they were thinking about it, and they just assumed that I wasn't.
Was anyone berating you with insults?
I mean, I wouldn't say berating me with insults because that sounds like they were calling me like jerk face, but there was a lot of negativity in my life that people didn't realize was negative. Kind of like the example that you used of your mother, like where she said, look, I've just got way too much going on. I need you to be okay because she's going through the illness of her parents, which is a real big deal to her.
It is.
But that put a lot of burden on you. So nobody was berating me with insults, but my family was not understanding of what I was going through. And I really thought that I was an asshole. I thought I was a bad kid. I thought that they didn't love me. And I carried this very deep, because I cannot stress this enough, Michelle. My parents are good parents. They're good parents. They're fantastic parents. I don't have a story about how my parents were awful or beat me or called me names or treated me like shit. They were good parents. And they made all kinds of mistakes, like tons of mistakes. Like every mistake they made just compounded and made my life even worse and worse and worse. But this isn't because they were malicious or bad. It's because they were human and nobody taught them about mental illness either.
Well, I have a story. In 11th grade, I walked out of my physics class.
Wow, your 11th grade was much different from my 11th grade.
Yeah, I walked an hour home. I took the keys to the car when I had a permit, and I drove to a drugstore, and I found some, it was sleeping pills, but obviously they were not, prescription sleeping pills. Went home, took all the pills, went to bed, didn't die, but my eyes were all dilated, couldn't read a book. I was sitting next to my mom, and the day just went on. I tried to kill myself that day. It didn't work, and the day was just went on like a regular day.
And nobody noticed.
Well, I got in trouble because the teacher said that I just walked out of my physics class, but that was it.
Yeah.
Nobody said, what did you do? Did you do anything after? Nobody questioned anything after. Nobody said, why did you walk out of your physics class? Where did you go? What did you do? I remember I was home. My mom goes, why are you home right now? Because she came home after work. I go, oh, I wasn't feeling good, so I came home. But really, maybe I should have been honest in what I did.
Right.
But I didn't. And there's so many things I would have wished I would have said to my younger self that this is not the answer. Because you think you're stupid and this physics class is so hard and you hate your life already, this is not a reason to kill yourself.
It's an interesting thing that you brought up there. Like, what would you tell your younger self? Like, if today's Michelle could call 20 year ago Michelle,
like physics class,
yeah.
Not a reason. But things I would have told to my younger self was, why would killing yourself now? What would that do for anyone? You're in high school. Everyone's going to be like, oh, that's the girl that killed herself. I don't think anyone would have been like, oh, I'm so devastated. I honestly wouldn't even think that anyone would have even cared at that point in my life. I didn't think anyone really liked me at that point in my life. And I was definitely having schizophrenia symptoms. I remember sitting in the back of that physics class, having a delusion, cracking up, laughing at nothing, and a girl 2 seats ahead turns around and goes, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, what? She goes, you're laughing at something. I go, oh, sorry, I didn't even know. So I was having schizophrenia, hallucination, delusions in that class and had no idea I was schizophrenic. But I obviously was.
And nobody noticed.
And that girl 2 seats ahead noticed something was wrong, but
didn't know what and
didn't know what it was.
It's interesting to consider what our families would have felt or what they would have done or how they would have reacted had we been successful at ending our lives. And as our listeners know, we work as speakers and writers in addition to podcasting, and we go to a lot of mental health conferences. And I hear people's stories all the time. I interview people about their stories. And I mean no disrespect when I say this, but when you hear a story from 1,000 different people, you sort of build up a thick skin to it. And they don't really affect me like they did in the beginning. And this is good. This is, I'm not saying this in any bad way. I love hearing stories, and I want people to tell their stories. And I'm glad that we play a role in getting stories out to the greater public. But myself, I tend to remain kind of emotionless by them. One time I got hired to give a speech, and the keynote speaker was a gentleman running for judge. He was going to be a judge. So I went on before him because he was the keynote. So I was like the opening act, and I just had a little 15-minute thing. And I came up and I gave my speech. It's condensed and beautiful, and I talked about it. I got a standing ovation.
Fantastic.
Oh, it was absolutely
fantastic. It was the best speech ever.
I'm
sure it was the greatest speech.
The greatest speech.
Gabe Howard gives the greatest speeches.
I did get a standing ovation while you're mocking me.
Oh, well, that's it. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Gabe.
I've only gotten 4 in my life.
Oh.
But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is after I was done, I sat down. I plopped my ass in my seat, and the next person got introduced. This was this gentleman running for judge. He was about my parents' age, and he was a very, very, very dapper African-American gentleman. He was wearing a suit, and his wife, same age and beautiful. And when they called him up, he walked up with his wife. And, I didn't really think anything of this. Like I said, I'm kind of bored. Like, I have to stay the next hour, whatever. It's not even my town. Like, I can't even vote for him for judge if I wanted to. But he said, we're changing things up a little bit, and my wife wants to talk for a moment about why we're mental health advocates. And she talked for just like 5 minutes, and she told the story of their perfect, beautiful son who died by suicide in his first or second year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, we did everything right. We lived in the best neighborhoods. We sent him to the most expensive private school we could find. He went to Europe. He got into the finest college. We were so proud. My husband's a judge. We're upper middle class. We both hold advanced degrees. We gave everything to our children.
That means nothing.
Yeah, and that's what she said. Except we did not understand mental illness. We did not understand that he was struggling. We did not make a way for him to ask for help. He could not get out of whatever it was that made him do this. And now for the rest of our lives, we don't have a son. And I started to cry because as I was looking at them, all I could think of is if I was successful, it'd be my parents. These two, they did not set out to be mental health advocates. They didn't want to be at a mental health conference. They didn't, this guy was a lawyer that became a judge. They became mental health advocates because they missed it and because they were too late and because they don't want this to happen to other people. It could be my parents. I'd be gone and my parents would just be standing there saying, we don't know what happened and we don't want it to happen to other people. And that's why we need to talk about this more. That's why we need more mental health education. That's why we need to understand suicidality and mental illness. Because me and you, Michelle, we're lucky it's not our parents.
Yeah. I believe in high school, my mom, when I was not doing my homework in high school, it was more because I believed I would never graduate high school. I thought I was going to die. But my mom, she believed it was a learning disability.
Sure.
Because she was really unaware of what, mental health and mental illness was. So when she found out years later when I was in college that it was mental illness, she was like, oh, I never even thought of that. How could you not think of that?
Because we didn't think about it either, Michelle.
It's education. It's just education. And it's just different because I think generations ago, they didn't do that. And even considering my mom never thought about mental illness, when my mother's grandmother lived in a psychiatric center from the moment my grandmother was born until she died. And my mom has memories of going to visit her in the center where she spoke like a baby and was just for lack of a better word, she was Looney Tunes. So to have that in our family and to not see anything like that in me, how could it have been such a shock if it runs in our family?
Because everybody thought that it was a one-off, that it was a 1 in a million, that it was never going to happen again. That it's like getting struck by lightning. I have a family member that was struck by lightning. You know, I don't look up at the sky and try to avoid it, right? I still go out in the rain. I just think, hey, this is a 1 in a million thing.
There's my dad's first cousin, Lori. She's schizophrenic as well.
Well, there you go.
My mom's sister takes antidepressants.
And
my mom still, was it denial?
Yeah, probably.
It might have been
It was denial. It was lack of understanding. It was ignorance, and it was the ostrich syndrome.
I don't hold it against. I don't hold it against her. I don't hold it against her that she didn't see it. I think maybe it was a denial thing. She didn't look into it. She really thought it was a learning disability because she always said that I don't read, and if you don't read, you're not smart. I'm like, well, I read some books, but what was hard for me about reading is that I was so busy in my head all the time. It's hard to read a book when your mind's racing back and forth.
It's all over the place. Michelle, what do we want to leave our listeners with? I mean, because we've covered a lot. I mean, this is not our normal I hate Michelle, Michelle hates Gabe, and then we start screaming at each other show. And that's for the best. That really is for the best.
I mean, just to leave listeners with that, suicide is not an answer. And like I said, I tried about 7 times and I failed 7 times. It's not even an easy thing to do. And most likely you'll end up in a psych ward where that's not fun to be in. So really weigh your options and then just don't do it. It's not a good idea. You're going to hurt more than just yourself. You're going to hurt the people around you. You're going to hurt the people that love you. And if you keep on going with your life, things do get better. My life has just gone leaps and bounds better than I ever thought would ever happen in my life. I never thought I'd be recording a podcast with Mr. Gabe Howard and talking about mental health like I do now. I thought I would be pathetic my entire life. Would never.
Whoa. The two are not mutually exclusive.
That's true.
You can be recording a podcast with me and still be pathetic.
I guess. But I never really envisioned a future because I never thought I would get there. I'm still at that point. It's still hard for me to envision a future, but that's almost my own insecurity, thinking nothing will ever really work out.
Of course. Michelle, I want to leave our listeners with just a couple of quick things. One, as we said before, suicide doesn't end the pain. It just transfers it to somebody else. There's another quote that I really like that is, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yes.
But the thing that I keep in my head, probably fourth most of all, after where I can find Diet Coke at 2 a.m., is looking back now, I realize that I didn't want to die. I never wanted to die. I wanted the pain to stop. And I didn't know how to make the pain stop. I just didn't. And the only thing that my battered, bewildered, diseased brain could come up with was suicide. That is not a good option. And it's far from the only option. And once I got treatment, I found all of these better ways to make the pain stop. And that's all I ever wanted. I never wanted to die. I just didn't want to suffer anymore. And I would say to anybody who's thinking about it, contemplating it, has in the past or maybe in the future, you don't want to die. You want the pain to stop. There are much better ways to make the pain stop. Please invest in yourself and look into them. Ask everybody that you know for help. Go to the emergency room, call the suicide hotline, talk to your general practitioner, go to the local urgent care. I hear that you can go to the drugstore and Walmart and see a doctor now. Do whatever it takes.
Your life is valuable and we want you in the world.
Completely agree. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode of Bipolar, a Schizophrenic, and a Podcast. Please review, rank, share us everywhere. Facebook algorithm has gone, I don't know, schizophrenic. Can we say that?
Sure.
Because it just mushes everything down. So at this point, I think you're going to have to share our website via smoke signal, maybe tattoo it on your arm and show people. I don't know. But whatever you do, for Michelle and I to maintain our high luxury standard of living, we're going to need you to do your part. We will see everybody next week.
We love you.
You've been listening to a Bipolar, a Schizophrenic, and a Podcast. If you love this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Head over to iTunes or your preferred podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. To work with Gabe, go to gabehoward.com. To work with Michelle, go to schizophrenic.nyc. For free mental health resources and online support groups, head over to psychcentral.com. The show's official website is psychcentral.com/BSP. You can email us at show@psychcentral.com. Thank you for listening, and share widely.